So these are my some of my rules for picking up stocks. I've done one similarly a few days ago. So what are the rules? So first rule is absolutely no doubt the company which I buy has to be top quality. I do a lot of research before I touch the company, and I will have a very clear rule that companies like Vedanta, where I don't like the management, I would still buy it knowing fully well that there is a buyback coming at maybe 140, and therefore it is not a bad buy at 90, right? So these kind of things. But largely, would I buy a Vedanta and sit on it for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 100 years? The answer is no, I will not. I would rather go for an Asian Paints, Burger Paints, HDFC Bank, HDFC Limited, which have really proven that they are high quality. You have a choice of between buying high quality and low quality. Always go for high quality. Low quality can be a short-term call, and immediately you might, somebody could tell you Arcom is a good buy at 2 rupees 5 paisa. It is definitely a good buy at 2 rupees 5 paisa, provided you have a very strict stop loss of 2 rupees. Because how much you should lose in a shit script like this is only 5 paisa, right? Sorry, I'm joking, but yeah, don't buy these kind of stuff. You are more likely to lose money than make money. So first, quality. And for me, if I'm investing in it, it has to be a dividend paying company. So all these companies going to NCLT and all don't attract me. I may still buy a 5,000 shares, but then that 5,000 into 2 rupees doesn't hurt me at all. Or maybe even 20,000 shares, 40,000 doesn't hurt me at all. But for a small investor starting to invest, trying to make dividends his mainstay for his retirement, the quality rule is very important, and it is the most often overlooked rule, because they will want something जो अरे 2 रुपये का चीज़ दो जो 4 रुपये हो जाएगा, 2 रुपये वाला 1 रुपया होने का chances ज़्यादा है. So buy a good quality stock. Obviously you will not get them very cheap, but then over a period of time they will start looking very, very inexpensive when you bought it. Please understand the difference between inexpensive and cheap. Wait for good prices to buy. That is the rule number 2. Don't be in a hurry. Identify your portfolio. Make your portfolio like a fiction, right? You make your portfolio somewhere and keep it and say, okay, these are the 22 shares that I want to own in my life. As of now, I may revise it later on, and I will keep on seeing when I get it at the price at which I want to buy it. I may sometimes get it, sometimes I may not get it. I'm sure by waiting you will get it. Yesterday, for example, Coromandel International came down, and I somehow thought that it will come down to 750. So I could buy it 750 because in the morning itself we had put a buy order at 750, and at the end of the day we had sold it off at 800. So it's not that I tried to trade in it. I was happy buying it at 750 and keeping, knowing fully well that I'll be able to sell it off for 850. But in the same day, if I could get a bargain, I take the bargain, right? So price you have to pay for your portfolio. Some days you get value, some days you get deep value, some days you get deep value. Like look at what is happening to Prashant Jain's portfolio, or even some parts of Naren's portfolio. Deep value to deep value, right? So you will need time and patience for making money on those portfolios. Nothing right, wrong. It's just a matter of strategy. Which brings us to the third rule, that try to see that the company has a big moat and has a margin of safety. In this, I think ITC scores like anything, because in the cigarette business, it's a huge moat. A new guy can't come in and a guy can't advertise. So it's like, if there was no advertising possible, LIC wouldn't have lost any market share. So some advertising, some aggressive selling, some giving huge margins to the intermediary, all those techniques have been used for LIC to slowly reduce its market share. It's been whittling away like a rat gnawing at it. It's slowly losing market share. Nothing can happen like that in ITC. People will continue to smoke and kill themselves. Wrong example for me to give, because I don't like to invest in this cancer spreader. I used to be an investor long ago, but no longer an investor. So to that extent, caveat, I don't own ITC. I may be owning ITC in some form, because some of the mutual fund or ULIP that I hold may be holding ITC. I have honestly not done a study of that, but otherwise directly I don't own any ITC or any other cigarette or spirits company. I just don't. It's a matter of choice, right? The other thing which I like to see in a company is a very long dividend paying track record and the last 15 quarters of rising EPS. They may not share it with me, that's fine, because a portion of my portfolio I want the company to pay out all the dividend. A portion of my portfolio I want it like Berkshire Hathaway, you keep all the money with you and pay me, don't pay me dividend now, pay me when I'm 80, right, or pay me when I'm 90, I don't care, but right now I don't need your dividend, I have other income. When my all other income stop, I want my dividend income to go up so that I am able to live off that. But even then, to me it won't matter. If I have a company like Berkshire Hathaway, I wouldn't mind selling a portion of my portfolio for my expenses. So I will sell off one share, earn a few 100,000, keep it in the bank and live off it. So that's also fine. I can do a systematic withdrawal in a company which doesn't pay dividend, but largely I like to create a portfolio where some companies will be making a huge payout, some companies which are very mature and old companies, and some companies which are still very young and not paying dividends, because I know after 10-15 years those companies will take the roles which the older companies are doing. So you have to have a dynamic portfolio which has steady dividend, rising dividend and no dividend which are likely to come into paying dividend later on. So you need to create a portfolio. So yes, growing dividends is a very important thing, but there could be some which are steady because the yield is very good. Good quality promoters, this is a very important thing, because in my quest for good quality of promoters, I've been avoiding PSUs, and PSUs are some of the best yield shares. This is a conflict now. I have no clue how to resolve it. Right now I have some Coal India, Indian Oil, all that lying in my portfolio. We are talking in September 2020. I seriously do not know how badly the earnings will be damaged this year, but I am looking to get good dividends for year ended March 2022 from these companies, right? So yes, bad promoter, but I'm willing to bet that Modi will do something, or something will happen because of which I will have value unlock. Right now there is no great value unlock, because whenever the price goes up I sell, when it comes down I buy. So I've been a trader in PSU stocks, but I'm also an investor hoping to get some dividends, right? The quality of the promoter and quality of the company which gives me a big moat, gives me peace of mind, saying my portfolio is fine, I don't care, because I need 5 lakhs of annual income, I actually have 12 lakhs. So even if the market fluctuates and my dividend falls by 30% or 40%, I'm still okay, because I need much lesser than what is coming to me as dividends. Once you reach this position, you can be more comfortable than when you need every rupee if you're taking the dividends to pay EMI, then life is going to be difficult. You can use the dividends to pay interest on a borrowing that you have done for doing leveraged stock buying. That's a completely different thing, right? Make sure that you decide at what price you will buy and say these companies are overpriced and I will not buy it. Let's say you want to buy Hindustan Lever, but you decided that it is overpriced. I'm not getting into my view on Hindustan Lever. You decided it is overpriced, so you didn't buy. Then you kept watching it go up and up and up and above, and then you said, oh, something is wrong with me, I went and bought. That's also fine. Or you got desperate and saying, oh God, what will people think, therefore you bought. That is also fine, but you choose why you are buying. For example, Franklin India or Templeton does not buy Reliance Industries. That's fine by them, but I also know, therefore in none of their funds I can create alpha at a time when Reliance prices have doubled, right? So I need to know that those investments of mine will not do well vis-a-vis the index. So to that extent I should know. So don't buy overpriced stocks, wait for your price, you will get your price. Yes, long wait, maybe a year or two, but yes, you need to do all that. Then check out companies which will definitely survive over a long period of time. I did a study, a small Twitter poll on what are the shares that you will buy for the next 50 years. Can you imagine? I got 150 answers. To me that is stunning, because none of us know how the country is going to look after 25 years, so leave alone 50 years, but people are so confident. This is the overconfidence bias. So you see all this at play. Be careful about not falling into any of those traps, right? then make sure that you hedge yourself. Make sure that you hedge yourself properly, because you have dividend paying stocks, have some growth stocks, have some debt instruments. You never know what could go wrong. So therefore that you require a hedge. You can't put all your money into just one type of investing, because suddenly growth investing might happen, then momentum investing might happen. So if you're a good investor, know how much is in which scheme and how what is happening, or in your mind what is happening, saying I bought this for momentum, I bought this for deep value, I bought this for trading. Your mind should be clear as to why you're buying any of these shares, right? So do that. Use a lot of your common sense, because that's what you require for investing. You don't require anything more than that. Keep reading a lot, and then while you read, you will find better and better conditions to put, or like Atul Gawande says, better and better checklists. The more the checklist that you can make in your investment process, the more you realize that it is something which can be structured and taught. As of now, it's not being taught. You have to just leave it to the osmosis for people to come sit next to you and absorb it. It can definitely be made a subject to study, provided enough people study it and see how to structure it. Thank you.